They didn't come screaming out of the night like in a movie. They came slow, silent. Like a rumor you don't believe until it's too late, Willow Street glowed under the amber light of the setting sun, soft and still like a painting. Vanessa Hartley walked alone, groceries in one hand, the leash of her Doberman cane in the other. On any other day, she might have looked carefree, even anonymous. But today, the air carried a weight that made the hairs on the back of her neck rise. Kane sensed it first. The dog's ears pricked, his stride shortened, and a low growl vibrated from his chest. Vanessa glanced over her shoulder. That's when she saw them, 3 black motorcycles at the far end of the street, crawling like predators. All met, no plates, no logos. Their riders wore faceless helmets with dark visors, shoulders broad and still. They didn't rev. They didn't flash lights. They just coasted into her world like they owned it. Vanessa's breath caught. She didn't stop walking, but every step felt heavier. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Not here. Not now. Kane pulled tighter against the leash, growling louder. The bikes began to spread out, one to the left, one to the right, and one staying straight, closing in with each silent second. This wasn't random. Vanessa's mind raced. No purse. No jewelry. Just groceries and denim shorts. But it wasn't about what she had. It was about who she was. And somebody had decided that was enough. Then the lead bike accelerated, no warning. Just a burst of engine and light. It surged toward her like a missile, and that's when the bushes beside her exploded. A blur moved faster than thought, tall, lean, all black clothes, a glint of metal in one hand. James Weller, her bodyguard, her shadow, her father's last gift and her silent protector. He didn't shout, he didn't run. He stepped straight between her and the bike, raised his telescoping baton, and brought it down with terrifying precision. The bike screeched to a halt inches from his boots. The other 2 riders braked behind him. No one moved. Kane stood at Vanessa's side, growling low, body rigid. James didn't flinch. His voice came calm, controlled. Turn around. Now, .It wasn't a threat. It was a statement. The kind of voice that knew what blood tasted like. The lead rider hesitated. Then a subtle flick of his hand. All 3 bikes turned slowly and rolled away, disappearing into the lengthening shadows like they had never been there. Vanessa exhaled for the first time in minutes. Her knees nearly gave out. James turned toward her, his eyes scanning her face. You okay? She nodded, but it wasn't true. That wasn't a mugging, he said. It was a message. She swallowed hard. From who? James looked down the street, jaw clenched. Someone who wants you to remember that even in sunlight. You're never safe, and just like that, the illusion shattered. Her quiet life, her perfect neighborhood, the idea that her father's past had died with him, whatever was coming, had just arrived. The bag still sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Organic greens, lemons, and a loaf of sourdough, pointless now. Vanessa couldn't stop replaying the moment. The bikes, the silence, the signal. Every detail felt sharper than real life, like her senses had finally caught up with the truth she'd been avoiding. Kane lay by the back door, ears perked, tail still. Alert, but not anxious. Watching. Waiting. James stood by the window, blinds cracked an inch, scanning the street with the focus of a man who didn't trust peace. Vanessa broke the silence. That wasn't a robbery. James didn't look away. No, it was an evaluation. They wanted to see what you'd do. What I'd do. How fast, how strong, how close. She crossed her arms tightly across her chest. And what did we show them? That we're not easy targets. He finally turned to face her. but we're targets now. That much is clear. The room felt colder, despite the sun still bleeding through the windows. You think they'll come back? She asked. James didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped forward, pulling something small and black from his jacket. A listening device. He placed it on the counter gently, like it might still be alive. I found this under your car, he said. Last week. Her heart dropped. You didn't tell me? I needed to be sure. Sure of what? James's jaw tensed. That it wasn't someone inside. Vanessa's breath hitched. Inside what? The house. Your circle. Your past. Call it whatever you want, but someone gave up your routine. And someone is watching. A silence fell so thick. She felt it press against her skin. My father, she said finally. You think this is about him? James nodded. Your father made enemies the same way storms make waves without asking permission. Some are gone. Some are in prison. Some disappear until it's time to collect. Vanessa felt a wave of nausea. Her father had been a force untouchable, always 5 steps ahead. But she'd never thought the weight of his legacy would land on her shoulders like this. Never thought the sins of his past would come knocking at her door in broad daylight. James reached into his pocket again, pulling out a worn envelope. Her name was scrawled across it in her father's sharp handwriting. What is that? She asked. He hesitated. Something he left with me. Told me to give it to you. If things ever got loud, Vanessa took it with trembling hands. Inside was a note, short and surgical. If you're reading this, then the past has caught up. Callahan knows. And he's coming. Don't trust anyone but James. Burn this letter. She looked up. Callahan. James's eyes darkened. The architect. The man who built your father's empire from the shadows. He disappeared 10 years ago. Some said he died. Some said your father buried him. But if he's back, he's not coming for money, then what? You. The word landed like a cold hand at the back of her neck. She stepped away from the counter, her breath shaky. Why would he want me? James didn't blink. Because you're the last piece. Your name is on the offshore accounts. The access keys. The fallback systems your father set up if everything collapsed. Vanessa's voice cracked. He never told me any of this. Because he was trying to protect you, James's expression hardened. But secrets don't protect. They just make you easier to blindside. She stood in the center of the room, suddenly a stranger in her own home. Everything, the rugs, the paintings, the kitchen tiles felt like set pieces for a life that never belonged to her. Kane let out a low growl, ears snapping forward. James reacted instantly, his hand moving to the weapon at his hip. Get down, he whispered. Vanessa dropped to the floor just as the front window shattered inwards. A small, black drone buzzed through the broken glass. Scanning, blinking red, Kane lunged with perfect timing, his jaws clamping down with brutal precision. Sparks flew. Metal crunched. The drone dropped dead on the tiles. Vanessa's heart pounded in her throat. James moved fast, grabbed her by the wrist. We're leaving. Now, she didn't ask where. For the first time in her life, she didn't want answers. She just wanted to survive. They didn't speak for the first 100 miles. The SUV cut through the back roads like a scalpel through flesh, silent and precise. James kept one hand on the wheel and one near his weapon, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds. Vanessa sat beside him, lips pressed tight, her father's letter still clutched in her lap like a grenade that hadn't gone off yet. Behind them, Kane sprawled across the back seat, ears twitching, every muscle coiled beneath his sleek black coat. Vanessa broke the silence first. You knew about Callahan. James nodded once, eyes on the road. I knew the name. I didn't know he was alive. You didn't think to tell me? I did, he said. But your father made it clear. If Callahan ever surfaced, you were to disappear. No questions. No debates. Vanessa stared at the passing landscape, dry grass, bent fence posts, sagging barns like the country was aging and fast forward. My father spent his life hiding truths behind rules, she muttered. Even from me, especially from you. They pulled into a forgotten gas station an hour from the state line. The kind of place where the soda machine had more dust than drinks. While James filled the tank, Vanessa sat inside, staring at the digital security fob James had handed her just before they left. What is this? She'd asked. Access. To what? Everything. Now she clicked it open in her palm. Inside was a key-flat titanium, etched with a code she didn't recognize. Attached to it was a note written in her father's blocky, precise handwriting. Safe House 9B. Use only if James confirms breach protocol. Location Elliot. She stepped out of the car. Who's Elliot? She asked. James paused at the pump. Your father's fixer. Retired. Off-grid. Last known to be in Arizona. If he's still alive, he'll have answers. Back on the road, silence crept back in until James pulled a hard right down an unmarked dirt path. They drove through a corridor of twisted trees and scorched earth until a single house appeared in the distance. Weathered wood, boarded windows, and a sagging roof. They stopped at the gate. Cain barked once deep and warning. James didn't hesitate. He's home. Vanessa followed him through the gate. The front door creaked open before they could knock. A tall, weary man in his 70s stood in the doorway, shirt half buttoned, a revolver in his left hand and suspicion in both eyes. You brought her, the man said flatly. James nodded. She's all that's left. The man Elliot Granger lowered the gun, but not his guard. He turned to Vanessa and studied her face like it was a puzzle he'd solved long ago. You've got his eyes, he said. Vanessa stepped inside the house and froze. The walls were lined with corkboards and maps. Red string crisscrossed between names, places, dates. Dozens of faces stared back from pinned photos, some crossed out. Some circled. It was a war room. My father was paranoid. She whispered. No, Elliot said. He was hunted. And now you are too. They sat around a scarred wooden table while Elliot poured whiskey into cracked glasses. Vanessa didn't touch hers. Why now? She asked. Why is Callahan resurfacing? Elliot snorted. Because power doesn't die. It waits. He pointed to a map on the wall, where a series of offshore accounts were listed beside corporate shells and satellite coordinates. Your name is on all of this, he said. Your father made sure of it. You're not just a daughter. You're the firewall. Vanessa's head spun. He set me up. No, Elliot said. He tried to shield you by making you the detonator. Only he didn't count on Callahan coming back from the grave. James leaned forward. Can we move her again? Elliot shook his head. No point. Callahan already knows you're here. But he won't send a team. He'll come himself. Vanessa swallowed hard. What does he want? You, Elliot said. But not dead. Callahan doesn't kill leverage. He converts it. James stood. Then we prepare. Elliot opened a hidden panel behind the fireplace and revealed an armory, rifles, tech gear, encrypted comms. James started unpacking. Vanessa remained seated, her hands shaking. This wasn't just about her name. This was about her father's empire. About bloodlines and blackmail. And now it was about survival.As. The sun dipped behind the desert hills. Vanessa finally stood. If Callahan's coming, she said. Elliot looked up. He is. Then it's time I decide what I'm going to be. James turned from the gear table. And what's that? Vanessa met his eyes. Not my father's daughter. The desert air was colder than expected when dawn broke. A pale orange light spilled over the sand, painting long shadows across the cracked ground outside Elliot's ranch. Vanessa stood alone, arms crossed, her father's final letter folded in her jacket pocket like a loaded secret. Cain sat beside her, tail still, ears forward, waiting behind them. Inside the house, James cleaned his rifle one last time. Elliot brewed coffee as if they weren't about to confront a ghost. There was no panic, no plans to run, because running wouldn't matter anymore. The convoy arrived exactly at 7:13 a.m., not with sirens or violence, but with quiet, terrifying precision. 3 matte black SUVs rolled down the dirt road, their tires humming over gravel. No plates, no logos, just presence. At the center of it all, stepping out in a charcoal coat and leather gloves, was Callahan. He moved like someone who had seen kingdoms rise and fall and never flinched once. Vanessa took one step forward. Callahan raised his hands, a half smile on his face. No guns, he said, scanning the area. No drama. I just want to talk. James emerged from the house, rifle slung low but loaded, eyes locked on the man. Talk fast. Callahan's attention never left Vanessa. Your father would have ordered me shot on sight, he said casually. I'm not my father, she replied. He nodded approvingly. Exactly. She noticed something in his tone. Not arrogance, not threat, admiration. And that terrified her more than a weapon ever could. I've read the files, she said. All of them. The network, the assets, the crimes, and yet here you are, he said. Still standing, Vanessa took another step forward. Why me? Callahan's smile faded. Because your father trusted no one. Not even me. But you? He made you the key. Everything offshore holdings, back channels, emergency protocols, it's all encrypted under your biometric data. Voice, print, retinal scan. You don't even know how much power you have. She did now, and it felt like poison in her veins. So this is what you want? She asked. Control. No, Callahan said. Balance. Your father tipped the scales too far. What I'm offering is a seat at the table. Not as a puppet. As a partner. Silence, even the wind seemed to pause. Vanessa's heart pounded so loudly she thought Cain might bark. I used to wonder what kind of monster my father really was, she said. Now I know, Callahan's voice softened. He was never your enemy. No, she said, stepping forward one last time. But he made one the day he turned me into his insurance policy. She pulled the flash drive from her pocket and held it in the air, all the encrypted records. Unlocked, synced, and set to auto-upload to 3 international agencies. Callahan's face finally cracked, a flicker of something primal. You wouldn't. I already did, she said. The moment your men crossed the state line. Behind her, Elliot opened the cabin door. James stood in the shadow with his finger curled around the trigger. Callahan stepped forward slowly. If you destroy what your father built, you'll be hunted for the rest of your life. Vanessa took one last look at the letter in her jacket, then dropped it into the dirt. I'd rather be hunted than inherited. She turned around and walked back to the house, leaving Callahan standing alone in the growing light. Cain followed close behind, tail steady.It the door. James met her with a look of disbelief and quiet pride. That was insane, he said. Vanessa smiled, tears in her eyes. No, she said. That was freedom. They left before noon. James torched the safe house. No evidence. No trail. The fire roared high into the desert sky, consuming every blueprint, every lie, every legacy.As they drove away. Vanessa looked into the rearview mirror one last time. She didn't see smoke. She saw the end of her father's empire and the beginning of her own.